This is Taft Mohair, certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team. And we are starting, this is session 1 of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, session number 1, virtual mastermind cohort starting in the month of May. And tonight we have, so far, I think we had about 9 people who registered for the course. And I got an email today from one of those 9 stating that she had to pull out because she's getting her doctoral degree. And she didn't realize, the conflict it could cause getting on here every Monday night. And I said, hey, I understand. You go complete that doctorate. And she actually just completed one of my other masterminds, the 15 Laws of Growth. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But I want to welcome everyone to our mastermind from no matter where you're calling in from. If you're in the great city of Houston, Texas, or in Missouri City, Texas, or if you're in Corinth, Texas, if you're in South Carolina, welcome to the mastermind. This is not going to be a lecture, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. It will be very interactive. Tracy, I don't know if you're trying to hide from us, but yeah, we want to see you, Tracy. We're going to make this interactive, all right? So where do we want to start tonight? I'm going to do all the preliminary things first. I'm going to hit a couple of points about Zoom for those who may or may not be very familiar with the software. I'm going to hit a few things about the book and how to get the most out of this mastermind. And then we're going to jump into chapter 1. The funny thing about what happened to me today, I took my daughter to gymnastics. And that's usually Andrea takes it to gymnastics, but she needed me to do it today, not a problem. And I've read the book 5, 6, this might be the 7th time I've read the book, but I always brush up, Miss Terry. I always want to make sure I'm ready. So I'm sitting in her gymnastics class and I'm studying. And I set the book down to my right and I left the book at the gym. So that's no problem, Ashley, because I take copious notes. So we're going to be able to still do what we need to do, utilizing the PowerPoint, the copious notes, and a few other resources that I have here with me. And I also still have the original version of the book. So let's start there. I think Tracy said you don't have your book yet. Is that correct? Anybody else who does not have their book?
I will have it tomorrow.
Wonderful, wonderful. So great. Next one I was going to make, if you didn't have your book, do you need me to send the link? You don't have to get it from Amazon. You can buy it from wherever you want to get it, Barnes & Noble, Half Price Books. You can borrow it from a friend. But if you're anything like me, matter of fact, I'm glad you said that. Let me say this. I know many of us were probably raised and taught that we don't write in our book. Who was raised like that? Anybody?
I was, but I've been writing all in mine.
Well, I want to encourage you to write in those books. Not only that, if you're anything like me, it's going to be very crucial that you get you some, either a journal, composition notebook, whatever, but you want to get one and dedicate it to this book. Now, I try to save a tree, and one of the bonuses I'm going to give you all is some insight on an app called Evernote. It's a note-taking app, and in session 2 next week, I'm going to give you all some details about Evernote. But if you use these, I'm not trying to be OCD, but I'm going to be giving you all a lot of insight and information. I want to take you some great notes. So I want to tell you up front some effective ways you can keep yourself organized. You may have great techniques, keep using those. But if you don't, I just want to encourage you. If you use a composition notebook, it's taking care of your organization because it's binded together. If you use one of these, I can promise you we're going to fill this up. And I would encourage you to hole punch it, get your 3-ring binder, and put it in your 3-ring binder. All right? Because I'm going to be giving you all some significant amounts of information in regards to leadership. We're not going to tiptoe through the tulips. We're going to give you some serious information, and we're going to be hitting it hard and heavy. So with that, any questions about the book or anything of that nature so far? Not about the chapter, but about the book overall. Who has read beyond chapter 1? Okay. So y'all, okay, all right then, all right. All right then, okay, look at him trying to show off, Trace. They're trying to show off, Trace. Okay. All right. Well, let me share my screen and let me give you a few more details. All right, as I mentioned, I am a certified speaker with the John Maxwell team, speaker, trainer, and coach. Last year, I became an international best-selling author. The book is entitled Journeys to Success. I am one of 31 authors in this book. And just to give you a quick plug about how God works, I've been told for maybe 10 years that I should be an author. I should write. Taft, why haven't you written your first book? Taft, when are you going to write your first book? And I would always be like, me? Write a book? Why? What for? I'm a speaker. I'm a trainer. And just kind of, ignored that. And I want to encourage you all, write this down. If you don't know this one, write this down. Your voice has value. No, I didn't make that up. I stole that from Lupita Nyong'o. Your voice has value. Books are simply a way to express your voice. And the value that God has poured into you, he did not pour it into you for you. He poured it into you for someone else. So it's very important that we become a river and not a reservoir. A reservoir holds the water. A river freely flows. I didn't understand the impact of that statement until I wrote my chapter in this book. It became a bestseller in Canada and in America. And I began to see the difference of how people responded to my work. I began to see the impact. And I'm like, I'm the same person I was 5 years ago. Why y'all, what's up with this different treatment now? And this is one of the instances that blew me away. Some of you know this young man. Some of you may not know this young man. But Caius would take his mother and father, the book they bought from me to support me. And every night he would say, I want to read Uncle Taft's book. I want to read every night before he would go to bed. I want to read Uncle Taft's book. Now in this picture, I think Caius is like 2, maybe 3. And he's talking about, I want to read Uncle Taft's book, and would intensely go through the pages, looking at stuff and talking to his daddy and just asking questions. But then a light bulb went off because of someone that this young African-American male knows personally became a best-selling author. Look at the impact that my voice had on this young man. And then another member of my church, he's a regional sales manager in pharmaceutical sales. He's flipping through the chapter. The book talks about work ethic and success principles. And he said, Taft, I want to buy 10 copies on Friday. And I'm like, why? He said, well, we were just talking on our sales team a few weeks ago. And I think what you're talking about in this book could reinforce what we've been talking about with the sales team. Another light bulb moment. I want to encourage you all. Your voice has value. Document your voice. Don't be that reservoir. Be a river and let people feel the wisdom and experience the wisdom that God has poured into you. Now, this is not going to be a lecture on this mastermind. Those of you who your background is in education, I'm pretty sure that this particular slide is going to excite you. If I lecture, you're going to retain less than 5% of the information. If you only read the book, you're going to retain a little bit, right at 10% of the information. If you listen to the book, you're going to get about 20% of the information. But if we skip down to the purple section and form a discussion group. This mastermind will be our discussion group. You go from just a lecture at 5% to 50% retention. But how can we get even more, Taft? I'm glad you asked that question. It is very important that when we read the chapters, that we do the questions in the chapter. Practice the information, work through the information in the chapter, and then begin to share that with other people. Teach other people the information. Now you go from 5 or 10% up to 90% plus, retaining the information. This principle is applicable to everything you do. It's not just with what we're going to do in this mastermind. So if you want to make the most out of this time that we're going to have together, I encourage you, learn the information, answer the questions, and share the information. Teach someone else. And I'm going to be giving you all opportunities on the mastermind to take control and teach on the mastermind. Like I said, I'm not going to lecture for the next 7 weeks. This is going to be a highly participatory environment because I want everyone to have greater retention and mastery of leadership. Now, our objective, it's 21 laws. A lot of people will say, well, Taft, which one law do I need? I think he tells the story in the book. You actually need all of the laws working together. So, but we don't have time to cover all 21. So we're going to cover, I think my itinerary, I think I mapped out about 12 to 14 of them. And I'm going to email you all the flow of what we're going to be doing over the next 7 weeks. Tonight, we're going to do chapter 1. Next week, I think I already sent it to you all. Next week, chapter 2 and 3. And our objective is to put you in a position where you can develop your leadership skills, to provide strategies for you to develop and grow your team. And then I'm going to also be providing additional resources to help you in the area of team development and leadership development. Now, why is that important? Research shows that roughly 80% of organizations and companies don't do leadership development. As a matter of fact, I want to challenge you all to think about the company that you work for. When was the last time you had leadership development at that company? In the past 12 months, let's say how many times in the past 12 months has the company provided leadership training, leadership development? Anybody want to share?
Zero.
Oh, I'm hearing 0. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
No, we did leadership training last year, year before, the past 2 years, and we also always have leadership summit every year where we're trained.
Okay, so the leadership summit. And anyone else want to share about their experience? Anybody?
I have leadership training through my Bible study fellowship once a week.
Okay, excellent. Once a week, leadership training. What resources are you using, Ms. Geraldine?
Actually, we have a training leader who conducts the trainings once a week.
Okay.
Our primary resource is the Bible.
All right, excellent, excellent. And if you don't mind me asking, what book of the Bible do you all typically focus in on?
This last one was the book of Romans. We've been in Romans, Revelation, Isaiah, Moses. We did a study of Moses. So we've had I think I've been doing this for 7 years now.
Okay, wonderful. Now, she just made me think of 2 things I want to share with you all. One, this is the Maxwell Leadership Bible. What John Maxwell did, 40 years of leadership experience. Matter of fact, how many of you all have a Maxwell Leadership Bible? Overteen has it. Anybody else? Overteen, share with us. Instead of me talking about it, have you used it, Overteen?
A little bit. And I actually prefer it over my study Bible.
Interesting. Interesting. So the Maxwell Leadership Bible is one of the most amazing tools in regards to leadership development, leadership growth that I have invested in. What he does, he takes the laws and he identifies scripture parables that undergird, or the laws and how they undergird the scripture versus the scripture undergirding the law, how the law undergirds the scripture. So one of the things he points out, the book of Nehemiah is the most phenomenal book when it comes to leadership. And when you look at his commentary on Nehemiah's work and how he rebuilt the wall in record time at that, when you see the commentary behind what you read in the book of Nehemiah, it's really, really enlightening. So I want to encourage you all to, I'm not saying you got to go buy that Bible, but I'm saying if you're looking for leadership resources, that is a great tool, all right? And as we go along, I'll be sharing more with you all as we go through the mastermind. So, of course, we're going to be doing our mastermind on Monday nights at 9 p.m., starting promptly at 9. I think we did a good job of that tonight. My goal is to end promptly at 10 p.m. If you still have questions at 10:01 p.m., I'm going to stay on, address those questions and commentary, statements, et cetera, et cetera. But we will shut down at 10 o'clock every night. But if we do go over, it is recorded. And so if you have to get off at 10, not a problem. It's recorded. I will be loading the video to YouTube and the audio to Dropbox. So you will be able to take either option, watch it over or listen to it via audio. And still, even if you miss a session, or if you missed a portion of a session, you can get the recording via YouTube and the audio via Dropbox. Are there any questions about anything we've shared so far? Okay. All right then. No questions. No questions. I don't miss anybody. All right. Well, let's keep on. Let's keep moving. Now, for those who are on social media, I want everybody to do me a huge favor. Everybody take a picture of your screen. If you're on social media, take a picture of your screen right now and then just post it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. And we're going to be using the hashtag every week, hashtag Success with Taft and hashtag 21 Laws. So if you are on social media, do me a huge favor, connect with me, tag me, and y'all gonna help me trend, all right? Y'all can help me with my free advertising. So do me a favor and do that for me. Any questions about any of those details, the hashtag, social media, anything? Any questions? If not, let's jump into the book.
Social media hashtag what?
You said, what is the hashtag? Hashtag Success with Taft and hashtag 21 Laws.
Yeah.
You got it? Did I miss anybody? Any questions? And I see Chandra has joined us. Welcome, Chandra. All right. Now, I know Tracy hasn't gotten her book as of yet, but for everyone else, based on what you've read so far, which law has resonated with you the most? Not everybody at once.
I thought you just wanted us to read chapter 1.
And that's not a problem. That's why I asked a question earlier. How many of us have read ahead of chapter 1?
Oh.
And so we're going to discuss chapter 1, but I want to get an idea for those who are, all those group 1 students, all those students who want to, those GT students. I want to find out what you've read so far, which one resonated with you the most.
Oh, even if I just did 3, which one out of the 3?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was impressed by the law of influence. I've read up to chapter 5, but I found a lot of, it gave me a lot of insight as to some things that I was thinking about when I'm watching other people lead, or when, and I watch how effective they are because of the way they are able to influence their audience, and how, and the impact that it has, because it causes me to go and do more research, or do more whatever they're sharing, or whatever they're instructing about. You know, it's the way that they do it and the passion that they have when they do that. I become so intrigued by that, and I realized that there was that they had very impactful. They were very impactful because of the way they were able to influence, how passionate they were about what they were doing.
So impact, passion. What are the key words that Ms. Terry mentioned? I heard impact. I heard passion.
Well, their knowledge. You know, they were very knowledgeable, very knowledgeable about whatever they do. So all of that influenced me, or made me want to learn more about whatever subject or topic or project they were involved in.
Impact, knowledge, passion. Any other key words in Ms. Terry's statement? And I'm going somewhere with this. Any other key words stand out to you? If not, it's okay.
A statement, but I thought about being skillful.
Skillful. Okay.
I was just going to add another word. I don't know if she said it, but I feel like a lot of times they have energy with their passion about what they're talking about.
So you can not just hear what they say, you feel
it, yes.
Okay. This is very key that you all notice these things. I'm gonna connect the dots in just a few minutes. So I'm gonna leave that right there. Does someone else want to speak to what has resonated with them the most thus far?
I would say influence was mine as well. And it just made me think about, I guess, kind of how Ms. Terry was saying, like, when these people are talking about whatever subject it is or whatever matter, it's like they're just so, like you said, intriguing. Like, it makes you want to know what they're talking about and, find more information or be involved in whatever they have. And I know there are people just within my circle that are very influential to just people in general. And it's like, whatever they do, they just follow. Prime example, my husband. He can go and sell, I don't know, or talk about a phone case, and people just listen. They're just like, man, this guy like has all this information and I want to do whatever he's doing. And I'm like, how do I get a little bit of that? And even though he encourages and says that I have it, I'm like, no, I don't. And reading this chapter, I was like, yeah, I need to work on this, work on that. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's just, they just have like, I don't know, almost like that it factor or something.
Okay, let me address that. The it factor. Do you think that people are born leaders, or do you think they become leaders?
They become leaders. I don't think you necessarily are born a leader. I think you become it. I think it takes work. I think they have fears and anxiety or all these other things that any other everyday person has, but they work on it every day and they develop this I don't know, I don't know the best word for that.
Charisma?
Yeah, I guess maybe like charisma, like it's just developed over time. And just like some of the, the best well-known preachers in the world, I don't think that they always are just the most confident person. They still have to read and study and, to know the word, to be able to deliver it to the people or whatnot. But I think over time, like, I don't think you just wake up one day and be like, oh yeah, I got it. And I was going to make it happen. I think they all go through the same thoughts that we have from time to time.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
I think
Working
both.
with children. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just saying that I think both. I think there's
Mhm.
that just seems like they're just natural at it. And then I think there are some that may have it and not be aware that they have it. And so in that case, they are the gift is developed. But I think they still have it. They just may not be aware that they have it.
Okay.
I agree with that. Was you, Tracy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Tracy. And working with children, very young children, children aren't taught. You just see a lot of times that those children with that charisma or that personality that has a drawing effect that draws other children to them, and they wind up, being the leader. And that can be positive or negative. That can be the bullies as well as those children who are just they just headed on the right path. They have a direction, they have a focus in mind, and they will bring others along with them if they care to go, and nothing can stop them. They're going to continue on that path because it's something that's innate, seemingly, in them. Yes, and there are those who are born in families whose families are that's the environment that they're in. They're families who are very encouraging to children, who says, look, you're the head and not the tail, you're above and never beneath, and they continue to instill that in their children. And when their children have different challenges that they face, they help them to rise above it. So there, I think, like Tracy said, it's both. But I really believe that these personalities, these children that God gives, they're just born. I watch even babies in the nursery. I watch how others, when they're all crawling, there are some that's gonna lead the way, and the others will and do something with the other babies, and the others will follow. You can just see it. That's why children are just so interesting to watch and see. You can pick out who's going to be a leader in that group. You talked about Caius, Caius he's in a family where all of those attributes are encouraged and instilled there from when he's in the womb. They talk to him about who he was and who God is making him to be. So you see, I think that, and that way you can say maybe their leaders are taught, because it starts from birth, or before birth, before they're born. So it can be both. But I do think that God, he knows the ones. He's created us all to be the head and not the tail, to be above and never beneath. But I think that there are special ones, just like Moses, I think that there's special ones that are born for that purpose, plans and purpose that God has for us.
Anyone else want to get in on this? Not everybody at once.
I think that one of I only read chapter 1, the introduction in chapter 1, and the one key point that resonated most for me about leadership is the fact that a leader must have a strong desire to serve. And that jumped out at me. I'm not sure that everyone who pursues a leadership position sees it as a position of servanthood.
Uh-oh. Miss Jerry about to start something. About to take us off on our first tangent this evening. So, are you a leader if you are not willing to serve?
Yeah.
I want y'all to think about that one and give me some answers.
I think you can be a leader, but you may not be a good leader.
Yeah, I was to say, yeah, you might be a leader, but you're not a good one. Because you have to serve. Like, to be a leader, like you have to serve people. Like you have to be able, or be, you know, wanting to help others to be a great leader. Because if it's all about you, I mean, for one, I don't think people are going to really follow you to begin with. And then you're going to see, if you do have people following, I feel like over time, people are just going to leave, or they're going to realize that this isn't where God has called me to be, or this isn't where I need to be. Maybe I've learned and now I need to move on. But yeah, I think you have to be a servant. And I think that's why my husband's so amazing, because he's a servant. He serves everybody.
Tobias must be in the room with you, Ashley.
No,
He
he's
must be in the
not
room.
in here. He's not in here. I'm in his office, but he's not in here.
So
Also
this
have
is
to build relationships too, as a leader.
say it again.
You have to build relationships and be able to relate to other people as a leader.
Relationships and relate. Let me put both down. So servant, write that one down. Let me tell you what I have on my list so far. I have impact, knowledge, passion, skillful, energy, relate/relationships. That's two different things. Servant. Any other words through our discussion that you all want to make note of? Even though you don't even know where I'm going yet, are there any other words that you all want me to write down in connection to our discussion so far about leadership?
Well, they have to have
Character, transparency.
I didn't catch it. Say it again.
Their character, having transparency.
Character. And somebody else was talking at the same time.
I was saying, they have to have a particular skill set. They have to have some skills. You know,
Okay.
They have to kind of have some skills.
Okay.
They may not even be aware of it, but they have a particular skill set.
Now, has everyone written these? I think it's about 8 words. Has everybody written them down? If you haven't, I'll give them to you real quick. Everybody got them?
No.
I'm going to repeat them on. Okay, so we got impact, we got knowledge, passion, skillful, energy, relate/relationships, servant, and character. Now, I want y'all to put those words to the side. We're going to come back to them in a minute. Miss Jerry said something that I don't know if you all heard it, but I heard it, Miss Jerry. She said that she read the introduction. A lot. Oh, you did too? She see that, Miss Jerry? Your sister she didn't want you to outdo her. You see that? You still like that, Miss Jerry? Y'all grown and she's still acting like that, Miss Jerry. I can't, and she's still doing it. This is the point. I'm going to be saying a lot of things to you all that may sound trivial. And it may sound like, who does this boy think he is? Don't he know I'm older than him? Yes, you might be. But God has blessed me to develop an expertise in a certain area. One of them being leadership. Another being success principles. I've trained people all over the world. And one of the things that I've learned in working with tens of thousands of people for the past 20 years, most people, number one, don't read books. That's number one. None of you are in that category. But you answer this question to see if you're in this category. When people do read a book, they pick and choose what they want to read. And then they might pick and choose to read chapter 1 to the end of the book, but sometimes they don't read the introduction and the foreword. And then sometimes there are questions within the chapter that they say, I don't need to answer that. Or they just answer the question in their head. Now, if it's just one chapter and you answer the question in your head, not a big deal. But once you get to chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, I promise you, you're probably not going to remember all those answers. And if you don't get those answers on paper, the word tells us to write the vision and make it plain. Write the vision and make it plain. So what? So that the people can run. What God showed me many years ago is when he said so that the people can run, most of us think the vision needs to be written and made plain so that the people can run. Well, the key is we are the people. So if I don't write, I can't run. And if I can't run, my leadership is just treading water. My leadership is just running. It's it's running, but it's on that hamster wheel. It's running, but we ain't going nowhere. All because I didn't answer the questions and write the questions on paper and make it plain for me. So then when I go to my people, I can't make it plain for them. And the waters are all muddy because I didn't take the meticulous time to make it clear for me so that I can now transfer it to someone else. So I want to really encourage you all. If you have the habit of reading and not writing, this is the day that the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and change that habit. If you have the habit of not answering questions in the chapter, this is the day that the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and change that habit. I spent a lot of time on this. You can ask my sister, Ashley. I trained this. I stress this. I've trained corporate executives. I've trained millionaires. I've trained 10,000aires. I've trained college students. I've trained children. And I stress the point, and this is the reason why. Some of the most successful people that I have worked with and trained with, one of the common threads is they don't concern themselves with, I read the whole book. They concern themselves with, I studied the whole book. Or I took one chapter in the book, I studied it, I focused in on it, I mastered it, and then that changed my life. 2 Timothy 2:15 even says to study to show thyself approved. If you look at that word study in the Greek, it means to labor. So if I just pick up the book and just read it, we ain't laboring. I want y'all to labor in this leadership. To let you know a little bit about John Maxwell, he is a former pastor. He pastored for 25 years. Some of you are going to see scripture throughout this book because he's going to state it. And in some instances, he's not going to state the scripture. But you're going to be like, he preaching right there, ain't he? Because you know the word, you're going to be able to see him speaking the word through the chapter, through that leadership. So I really want to encourage you all, labor in this information. It can be transformational for your leadership. Now, some of y'all are going to say, well, Taft, I don't have nobody following me. I only have a team of 2. Well, a leader of one is a leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. A leader of one is a leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. So there is some valuable meat in the forward and the introduction. And allow me to give you some of it right now. Some of the information I wanted to ask you all about, it's directed from the book, and some of the stuff is going to be an offshoot from the book. So in the forward, this is the first offshoot. He asked Stephen R. Covey to write the forward. Now, in the original book, Covey didn't write the forward. So this is the 10th anniversary edition. He has become friends with Stephen Covey over a period of time. They've spoken to some of the same audiences. They've never shared the stage together, never wrote a book together. They never worked together. And this is one of the things that stood out to me. Scarcity versus abundance. Do we serve a God of scarcity or do we serve a God of abundance? I'm gonna try to respond. We serve a God of abundance, right? It's not a trick question.
Yeah.
So if we serve a God of abundance, then that makes us children of abundance. So if God is a God of abundance, we're children of abundance, then when we see scarcity in our living, in our acting, in our talking, then we know that that's not of God and we need to root that out. Would you all agree with that? Yes or yes?
Yeah.
So if you notice, here you have two very successful speakers and authors writing a book, and he makes the statement that he could introduce John Maxwell to his audience. A person with a scarcity mindset would never want to do that because they're afraid they might buy his book instead of buying my book. Okay. Now, in leadership, how many of us have worked with people who've made statements like that? We've dealt with people who act like that. So what we have to do is to ensure we can't change people, we can change us with the help of the Holy Spirit. But we cannot change other people, but we can be an example. So I want to challenge you all to ask yourself, am I operating in a spirit of scarcity or a spirit of abundance? And that's with all things. So I'm just presenting the question right now as a principle. Principles are few, strategies are many. So you're going to be able to apply this principle to a lot of different areas just by making the question apparent to you right now. So check this out. Another thing he talks about in the forward is he talks about John Maxwell's current philosophy of leadership. So that made me ask myself the question, Taft, what is your current philosophy of leadership? And I began to write things down. I want to pose that question to you all. What is your current philosophy of leadership? You may want to speak on it now. You may not want to speak on it now. You may want to write it down and answer the question later. But what is your current philosophy of leadership? What are your guiding principles as it relates to leadership? You all kind of spoke to it already. You talked about character, impact, knowledge, passion, skill for energy. See, I told you we were writing those words down for a reason. And I haven't got to the full reason yet. But I want you to be aware of what your current philosophy of leadership is. And then I want you to answer this question. How has that impacted you? Now, if you don't have a current philosophy right now, today, May 14th, 2018, I want you to answer the question, how has that impacted you? Leadership is not just for Austin, Texas, the state capital, Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Leadership is not just for the pastor of the church. Leadership is not just for the CEO of the corporation, because everything rises and falls on leadership. And if everything rises and falls on leadership, then we have to ask ourselves the question, how is leadership impacting my house right now? How is my leadership impacting my children, my nieces, my nephews? So I've thrown out a few questions. Anyone want to take 30 seconds and jump on any of those 2 or 3 questions? And if not, it's okay. You can think about it. We can chop it up next week if you want. Anybody want to speak to it? All right. I'm going to take that as you want to think about it, and we'll discuss it on next week. That's not a problem. Now let's jump into a few of the points from, excuse me, from chapter number 1. All right. Can everyone see that without me putting it in full screen? I'm going to go ahead and put it in full screen. Now, let's see. Let me move this. All right. Leadership, the law of the lead. Leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. Now, I'm going to fly because we got 14 minutes. Now, leadership ability is the lid that determines a person's level of effectiveness. The lower an individual's ability to lead, the lower the lid on his potential or her. The higher the individual's ability to lead, the higher the lid on his or her potential. Now, John Maxwell gives us a graph in the book talking about leadership effectiveness. And to give some clarity to what this graph means, the higher you want to climb, the more you need leadership. So if I want to climb family leadership, political leadership, ministry leadership, whatever the case is, I'm going to need to work on my leadership. Once again, you see that word again, the greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. Whatever you will accomplish is restricted by your ability to lead others. So if you look at the graph on the left, on the y-axis, it's labeled leadership ability. On the x-axis, it's labeled success dedication. You may say, Taft, what does that really mean? Success dedication, look at it as your work ethic. How committed are you to getting the work done? And oftentimes, we're so committed to getting the work done that we just say, forget it, I'll do it myself. Say amen if you've heard that or done that before.
Amen.
So we're so committed to getting the work done, and our work ethic can be very high, but our effectiveness is low. So our work ethic is a right there at 8, a 9 in that area, 8.5, and you're really going at it, you're getting the job done. But how good is that? How effective is that? And that's not what Jesus did. If it's in the family and you keep saying, forget it, just give it to me, I'll do it myself, then the children never learn how to take ownership, and then they build ineffective homes when they go get married. If it's in ministry, then the actual ministry can die when you go to glory, because we have not developed anyone new that's coming behind us, because we're completely ineffective in what we're doing. Our leadership is very low, but our work ethic is very high. So the job gets done in that instance, but it's not effective over time. If you look on the right, same level of work ethic or success dedication, but in this situation, the leadership ability is rated as a 6. Look at the effectiveness under the graph. The effectiveness of this leader has increased tremendously, all because they developed their leadership lead. They increased their leadership ability. And in this case, I've seen it happen. This is one of those no frustration zones. See, I don't like being in situations where, people just think you got to be up late all the time and working to the last minute to get the project in. For what? No. That's a reflection of poor leadership. So what I want to be able to do in this mastermind is give you all some clean strategies to develop your leadership ability, increase your lead, which in turn increases your effectiveness. Any questions about that? Any questions about the graph?
No.
Excuse me. So now this is the reason I wanted to get some of those words out. You may want to take a picture of this screen. Here you have about 21, if I remember correctly, 21 characteristics that undergird leadership. You all mentioned like 8 or 9 of them earlier. Character, charisma, commitment, communication skills. What kind of leader can you really be if you have poor communication skills? If you just talk to people crazy, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt you tremendously. Competence, courage, discernment. He went to the Bible. Focus. What is focus, Taft? Focus, Focus. Follow one course until successful. Some people are just all over the place, right? Generosity, initiative, listening, passion, a positive attitude. How many of us, have you ever worked with someone and issues come up and they act like, the leader acts like the world is ending, versus you work with someone, issues come up, and their response every time is, no problem. No problem. No problem. Do it with a smile. It's little things like that. Problem solving. We talked about relationships earlier, briefly. Responsibility, security, self-discipline, servanthood. That one was brought up. Yeah. Teachability. You mean leaders need to be taught? Yeah, because the leader is following someone. Vision. The leader has a vision of how things should be, and they're working towards that. Any questions about these characteristics? No questions? Mm-hmm. Raising your lid. You want to ask those who are closest to you to grade you on your lid. I would encourage you, you could take those 21 characteristics, ask people who are closest to you to rate you in those areas. But you know what? Do this first. At the end of your your book, there is Appendix A. Let me take you off a screen share. How many of you all have done Appendix A already?
Were we supposed to do just the law of the lid or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay, well, I haven't finished that. I just did. I didn't understand.
Not a problem. Even though you haven't read the whole book, he gives a description and some supporting details for each of the 21 laws. And it gives you enough information to go ahead and rate yourself. So then you begin to see your target areas for growth, strengths, and weaknesses, if I remember correctly. Most people want to focus on their weaknesses. Never do that. That's ineffective. You want to take your strengths, make them better. Your target areas of growth, put a plan together, make them better. So, Ashley, you said you did Appendix A already?
I did.
Any aha moments that stood out to you?
I don't feel like there was like an aha moment, but yeah, it was just definitely some, like, I guess like the intuition. I was like, it was higher than I thought that it would be. So I was like, oh, okay. But then I started thinking about what is it called? gifts test that I did, not the one that you gave me, but I did another one and it had discernment on there. So I was like, maybe he uses the word intuition, but maybe discernment there. Of course, I didn't necessarily focus on my weaknesses just because I just took the growth class. But I probably, if I hadn't taken that, I probably would have been all about my weaknesses. But yeah, it was just really good to do and kind of see where I am as far as all of the laws applying to myself. So
right.
It was good.
So I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't done Appendix A, to definitely take, you know, it might take you 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to knock out your rating of yourself in Appendix A. And it will help you do what we were just speaking to about how to raise your lid. Because once you begin to identify what your areas of strength are, and then your areas for growth, now you have a plan. Okay, she mentioned the law of intuition. If I look at the law of intuition, and actually that was one of my areas for growth. So, you know, my background is engineering. We tend to be very factual. And when you get to the law of intuition, he'll talk about, do you work with feelings? Do you work with facts? Well, most of my life, I'm a black and white factual numbers kind of person. You know, what's the data? You know, I don't make impulse decisions. You can present the data to me, well, sir, this is only going to be available for the next 3 hours. All right. If I don't have a decision in 2 hours and 59 minutes, you won't get the sale. I'll see you next year. And it doesn't bother me. I just leave. And it's so funny my wife is an engineering background also. So when people try to close us like that, we not, okay, all right, bye. Okay, we won't get a discount. Life goes on. And so it's so funny that we don't allow those feelings. And it even hurts me at times because my wife says I'm not compassionate enough. And so I'm working on that, Miss Terry. I'm working on it. Y'all pray for a brother. So, but it's amazing to be able to see these things and you see this rating and then you think about real life situations. Yeah, I do that. So I want to encourage you all, complete the Appendix A, knock out all of them, and it will definitely give you a bigger picture. Let's go back to sharing the screen. We got about 4 minutes before we close out. So yes, you can ask people who are close to you, and these points that I'm making right now are actually in the back at the rear of Chapter 1. Ask those individuals who are closest to you to rate you. As a matter of fact, I think he gives. How many does he give? He gives key areas.
4.
He gives 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you don't have to give them the whole list of 21. That might be like a job for some people. So if you give them those 4 areas, and that's something they can do quickly, give you some feedback and help you now don't be emotional about it. Some people may rate you lower than you think they should. It's not even about that. Release the emotions and receive the wisdom. Go back to the 21 qualities and find where you can make the greatest impact by growing. Remember to work your strengths. Things you can do today to raise your lid. Now, how many of us already utilize the technique of reflection? Anyone, how many of us like to journal by a show of hands? So this book is going to push you to do some journaling, to do some writing. And in one of his books, The 15 Laws of Growth, he talks about the law of reflection. Reflection enables us to think on paper and then grow. So that's why I was encouraging at the very beginning, you know, getting a composition notebook and you can put all this wisdom on paper and begin to think back. And one of the other questions I wanted to ask you at the very beginning, I forgot to ask, what leaders influence? As a matter of fact, we'll end on this question. What leaders influenced you throughout your life? Anybody want to share? Anyone think back? Who influenced you? I'm going to go to a certain period of life. Let's say high school and college. you have that one teacher and or professor that influenced you. For me, it was Dr. Freddie Frazier. Changed my life. I mean, not just, he was my calculus professor, and it wasn't just about calculus 1, 2, 3, and 4. It was about how to be a man, how to be honorable, how to walk with integrity. And he died last year, went to his funeral. His wife died the year before, went to her funeral. And just to see the number of students that he influenced and all the people who came to the funeral and told all these great stories. And I sat there in that funeral and I said, I want to have this kind of impact. I want my life to speak when I'm gone. So who influenced you all? Let me get one or two of you to share. It could be in church, it could be in school. Just I want you to share. Come on, it's 10:01. We got to get off. Y'all talk fast.
My high school English teacher and my trigonometry and calculus teacher in high school, they were friends. And they both influenced me greatly by their professionalism, their outlook on, their positive outlook on everything in life, and the way they encouraged all the children to strive to be the best that they could be and never look at themselves as less or to, they would always get you to look at your positive traits and just build on them all the time. The same thing that Maxwell tells us to do.
Anybody else want to share? Now,
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mine was my Amy. She's passed away, but I used to go and babysit for her, my cousins. And she was a minister of music, so she was always at the church, so I was always babysitting. But the way she carried herself and the way people looked up to her, I was like you. I would always say, when I grow up, that's why I want to be. I want to be just like my aunt,
Mm-hmm. Now, for homework, what I want to encourage you all to do is take that list of 21, those 21 characteristics that undergird leadership, and I want you all to think about those characteristics in regards to the leaders, the 1 or 2 leaders. Don't try to do all of them. Just take 1 or 2 leaders. And like I would take Dr. Frazier and I would look at the list. Let me share the screen and we're going to close out. I'm going to go back to that list again. So I would take Dr. Frazier and I would think about Dr. Frazier in regards to character. What kind of character did Dr. Frazier have? Then I would write those things down. What do I remember about his character, about his word, about his honesty and integrity? What about his charisma? He was cool, and he would tell you he was cool. It was just so funny. I have so many stories. His commitment. He lived on the north side of Houston, was a professor at Prairie View, and he made us come to class. It was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, but he made us come to class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 8 o'clock in the morning. And do you know, students came because he said, be there. He was committed. We on campus. He driving from the north side, from Northeast Houston to Prairie View, hour drive every morning. So he was committed. So when I think about that, I reflect back on my life and it shows me, Taft, okay, get that together, step that up, work on that. So I want y'all to think about these things, reflect on paper, and then any questions that you develop, let's discuss them on next week. If any questions pop up, you may not have any questions. You might have some questions, but if any questions pop up, this exercise is primarily for you. But if any questions come from the exercise, please let's share as we jump into chapter 2 and 3 on next week. All right? All right. I'll be shooting you all an email in the next 3 days, the recording. And we're going to make sure, Miss Jerry, we getting that you're receiving email from me, and we're going to fix that challenge.
Okay.
And we will go from there. Any closing questions? Chandra, welcome. I don't know if we heard from you tonight. Chandra, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Wonderful, wonderful. So if y'all don't have any questions, I pray you all got some value out of tonight. And I look forward to sharing with you on next Monday. Y'all take care and be blessed, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Have a good
Good night.
evening.
Night.